lot of the friends in the audience will only know me as Kamlesh Vyas, so I think if we shorten it, I think it's better and reduce attention spans of people, even shorter names may work better. So good morning professionals, business professionals in HR. I sometimes find it very odd that a lot of the HR professionals and HR departments refer to the rest of the organization as business. I would rather refer to the HR business professionals or business professionals in the HR functions. Just as you have business professionals in the marketing function, we have business professionals in the HR function. Because the moment we start calling ourselves HR and the rest of the organization business, why are we surprised if they say that you're not a business partner? I think over the last, yesterday and part of the day today, you would have been bombarded by technology. Also, I think possibly underlying theme that how useless we are in the HR function and how much more ground we have to cover. I'd like to pause here for a moment, take a step back, and think about all those HR professionals, business professionals in HR, who for decades have been talking about this very important function, have been living the values for the organizations, have been standing up against the might of the organization sometimes to make sure that justice is delivered to those employees, sometimes the junior most employees, going across and building careers, mentoring people, ensuring that the human touch remains in the organization, coming to these conferences and other conferences and saying that we are an important function and we are a business partner. So for a moment, if we think about all those peoples, all those professionals, all those professors, all those functionaries, I think they deserve a standing ovation. So can I request you all to please stand up and give a standing ovation to all the HR professionals of what they've done over the decades. Thank you very much. And the reason for us to do that, as we talk about evolve, we sometimes forget that it's just not the HR function which needs to evolve. For example, have the marketing and sales and the business development functions arrived in life, or they don't have to do anything different? Is it the same with the manufacturing function? What about the strategy? What about the logistics and so on and so forth? So everybody is evolving and so are we. It's not just that we are the ones who are the laggards and everybody else has done what they needed to do. The slides are here. I'm yet to come to my slides. So everybody evolving and so are we. It's a changing world. There are triggers for all of us and there are triggers for us and we'll work on those. The moment we take that into the context that we are as much business as anybody else is, and we need to, while we have done all the things and we appreciate what the HR functionaries have done, it's not that we don't need to do much. We have to do a lot, but we also have done a lot. And I think if with that mindset, we go with a positive rather than a defensive approach that we are absolutely useless. And here are, we are the banging babies of the corporate world and, we are here. I don't think that's going to help us too much. And I think in one context, it is such a wrong message to send to the youngsters around the world who have taken HR as a profession. They've taken this as a career, not because they tick the wrong box, but they have very, very deliberately taken this to be their careers. The message we send out to them is one of positivity, that you are in the function. We are there to support you. There is a lot to be done, but we will get there. I'd like to, as we talk about, and we'll go through some of those slides, but I'll rather talk with you. As we begin talking about the triggers in business, I'd like to point out 2 or 3 things which we are observing in our lifetimes. First is the longevity. With all the developments, we know today that there are already 300,000 people in the world who are 100 plus. And it is estimated that at least 1/3 of these will go on to live 125 years. people are also saying that the first human being to live for 150 years is already there amongst us. Which means that the longevity, which means that people will live for 125 and 150 years, has many implications. Think about, on the lighter side, think about people who are going to be married for 100 years. People like me, child marriage, married at 25. If we live for 150 years, we're going to be married for 125 years. Think about the number of children and great-children and great-great-great-children that we will have every 25 years. There's a new generation coming up. Think about the insurance we will need. Think about the caregiving we will need. Think about the number of careers we will take up. Because the current traditional approach to retiring at 58 or 60 may not work, because we're going to live for 125 years or 150 years. What does this mean for us in business? What does it mean for the human resource function? And this is a reality. This is not that it's going to happen sometime later. Those people are, as we said, the first person to live for 150 years is already on this planet. That's one indicator. The other trigger which is happening in our environment is this entire aspect to technology and how robots will replace us and so on and so forth. If we look at the trend, people are saying each one of us will give away the mundane, the routine, the traditional work, and we will do more value-adding work. Now let's extend this to infinity. We will keep on doing more and more value-adding work, which means that lesser amount of time may be required and fewer of us would be required. So if we extend this logic, it would mean that someday we will be doing no work and none of us would be working. Number gets less and less, and someday it becomes zero. Work becomes less and less, and someday there's no work. So imagine a situation wherein there are robots working for us. They are creating wealth for some of us. Rest of us are not in that league, different league altogether. And there is money, but there is no work. So work-less wealth is a situation which again is not too far into the future. Imagine a situation where everybody has money, or large part of the people have money, but there's no work to be done. I remember this anecdote some time back. There is a park just outside our home, and I used to see this old gentleman come to that park with a tiffin box and a newspaper every morning and sit there all day and return in the evening. So I went and asked him one day. He says, I can't be at home. And this was a retired person who just can't be at home because this is where he's worked and, he's had a busy working life. Where does he go to? That situation, and then related to that is another situation. There is this concept of universal basic income. If there is wealth, if there is no work, what do we do? Everybody needs to have some money, especially the ones who are not in that wealth category. So there is universal basic income. There is a concept around it. By the way, it has been found that 1/3 of the global defense budget is good enough for everybody to have a universal basic income around the world, which means that we have the resources, we have the wherewithal for everybody to have that basic income. And then what happens? Everybody has some basic income, but there is no work. How are people going to lead their lives? Are they going to booze all day? By the way, there was a World Bank research which tried this experiment. They found that even when people had the money and they had no work, only 1% of them were misusing that money. And in another research, they found that when people's work was reduced and they were told to go, they didn't just go back and do nothing. They invested a large part of that time trying to reskill themselves, do new things, learn, live the passions that they wanted to live. So some of those generalizations that we have around what will people do when they have no work are only that, generalizations. Imagine a situation where everybody is paid and there is no work. That's the universal basic income. Now add to that a third, and you might have seen this movie called Elysium, which talks about this concept. And I don't even see this as something which is fiction. You have gated complexes in Gurgaon and Noida and Delhi, where the rich and wealthy live, and outside are the others. The movie takes this to the next level, wherein the rich and wealthy decide that the planet is not good enough for them. They're going to live on another planet. So they elevate themselves and live on another planet, and the only reason they come to the planet Earth is to get the workmen that they require. So they live in the separate planet, which is like our gated complexes in Gurgaon, Delhi, and Noida, and the rest of the world lives there. And they want to make sure they put in all the systems to make sure that these people can't voluntarily come onto this Elysium planet. Think about the situation on wealth without work universal basic income, longevity of 125 or 50 or even longer, and the separate Elysium worlds of the haves and the have-nots across two different planets. Those are the challenges that the businesses need to solve, and those are the challenges that we in the human resource function in the business need to solve. I think the aspects of artificial intelligence and analytics and cloud and big data, I think they are just a very tiny distraction in this longer term journey. And as we can prepare for that and you can start thinking on those aspects, this is where I think our discussion needs to lead us to. I'll throw a few more ideas and then maybe stop over for a few questions. The HR function as we know today, I believe, is going to be affected by 4 changes. The first change, as all of us know, have been talking about is the technology change. A lot of this work will get done through the technology, goes without saying. And this could be 1/4 of the work, 25% of the work the technology will do, the robots will do, the bots will do. There is another 25% which the line managers, so to say, the functional managers and operations and marketing and so on and so forth will undertake themselves. Because who's better placed to train? Who's better placed to hire? Who's better placed to motivate, reward performance, coach, mentor? The line managers. So 25% of this work, of the remaining work, could go on to the line managers. There could be a third 25% which would become so focused, so sharply defined that it will be done by specialized firms. So you'll have a firm which comes in beginning of the year, does the target setting, comes to the middle of the year, does the mid-year review, comes end of the year, performance review, and they are not part of the organization. So a lot of the specialization of different kinds would be done by these specialist agencies which will do it for the world, they will do it efficiently, and they will do it with expertise. Which means that you will have the HR function moving from a concept of a doing function to a facilitating function. The role may come to about 25%. The number of people may correspondingly reduce. The nature of conceptual, intellectual, strategic, and real sense partnership with business and doing the business may emerge. The question is, are we prepared for that? What are we doing towards making sure that we are successful in that scenario as well? And once again, this is not fiction. We have seen that happen to a lot of the other functions. Not long back, we had administration functions of very large sizes in organizations, or legal functions, or communication functions. Today, you don't have that. Today, you have 1 or 2 representatives who manage the ecosystem, who get the specialists when they're required. The similar concept or similar change, I met a friend very recently, very large organization, successful in the US, and I asked him, how many professionals work in your HR function? And he says, for our 4,000 people organization, we have only 6 people who work. But is that all? Yes, we have these 6 people, but we have the technology which supports us, we have automation, we have specialization, and so on and so forth. We in the HR function, and this is a function from which I have derived my salaries for 25 years, need to be prepared not in a defensive manner, but we need to be prepared to acquire those right skills. There would certainly be some skills which will be as relevant or even more relevant than they are today or they have been in the past. Analytical approach, solving business problems, building careers, and we talked about mentoring people. And I think those skills of the human heart will continue to be relevant. Those skills of the analytical, critical mind will continue to be relevant. And those are skills which will make sure that the technology ups and downs are only leverage. They don't threaten us. And I believe that this journey from the 100% to the 25% and the new set of skills that we would require as we move up is something that is a litmus test for us as we stand and sit in this hall today. I'm going to pause for a moment here, and before I get into the slides, which are just a few, I wanted to see if there are questions. So rather than looking at your questions towards the very end and not having the time to respond to those, as I go through these slides, if I can touch on some of those aspects, I would prefer to do that.
Hi, my name is Sukrit. I represent DXC Technology. So you talked about the 4 elements of changes. One of which you said that it will go to the specialized firms. So my question is, won't these specialized firms have professionals coming from either the client side of it or from even the university side of it who would be taking those steps, those who would be learning and making those things happen? So why that specialized firm gets that highlight, whereas the individual is not being, it's not being asked about?
Thank you. I think that's very insightful, and you've been very observant, I must say. I'm going to combine the questions and answer those as we go ahead. So any other questions?
Hello, I am Nirupma Srivastav. I am from Create Energy. I want to know about the last 25% which you have mentioned about the skills. So what skills do you feel would be relevant? Can you elaborate more on that in terms of learning and development, in terms of career, and what are the other skills which you really feel important as HR professionals here?
Sure. Thank you.
Sir, you have said that the HR function will finally reduce to 25% of what it is today. My question to you is this, if even this 25% is not there, how is it going to impact the organization?
Could you repeat that, the last part?
What I'm saying is that if there is no HR function in an organization, how it is going to impact? Because from this answer we'll really derive the meaning for our own purpose. Supposing this 25% is also not there,
right,
how it is going to impact
Sure.
the organization?
Thank you. We'll take maybe one more, and then I'll go into the slides.
Hi, sir. This
Yes.
is Surya from DSM Sanagam Pharmaceutical. My question is that we anticipate the change in the near future, that tomorrow there will be no hierarchies or no organization where people going to work at the workplace. People will be working from remote location or project basis, or maybe providing their services for a limited period of time and then working on their own. So I want to understand how HR function as a whole will be enabling itself to cater to this global population, and what kind of changes in the org design which will be expected in such scenarios.
Sure. So I've got that covered in one of the slides. I'll touch base on that. Okay, we'll take maybe one more. I saw a hand going up there. Yes. Can somebody please help with the mic?
Yeah. Just, hello.
So these are friends I have planted in the audience to ask me questions. They are all asking the questions on which I have slides.
Hi, Kamlesh. This is Rashmi here from the Wave Group. So everybody been speaking about the new skills that we need in the next, all about technology and AI, and you also mentioned about a lot more things. But what is that we have today in HR that we can actually carry forward? We are learning and we are unlearning and learning everything new. Is there any skill that we really need to concentrate on that we can take forward?
Sure. Thank you, Rashmi. All right, so I think those 4 questions give me a good guidance in terms of how we could, use the rest of the 7 minutes that we've got with us. You think it's okay, or I should have just gone with the presentations and questions towards the end? You want to say something?
Do you mean to say that SHRM will evolve into Society for Data Analytics or further evolutions?
I can tell you for sure. In Sanskrit we say, Shram Mev Shakti. The power comes from the effort. So our Shram is going to remain. The Shram is not going to go anywhere. In fact, it may become Parishram as we go ahead, but Shram will remain. It's not going to change, for sure. Thank you. So no, it will not evolve into data analytics. All right, so I mean to touch on some of these, very critical observations and questions that our colleagues have made. We are seeing this transformation in business, and, people are talking about Industry 4.0, etc., manufacturing. I think we are seeing that, and it's just that people believe that we have been trying to adapt to these changing situations. I think the time has possibly come where when we talk about Industry 4.0 or the organization of the future, we HR are not going to sit back and respond to it. Why can't we lead it? Why can't we do stuff which will lead the next wave of the transformation in the world of business? And I think this, to my mind, a very defensive approach that every time there was a change, we work backwards to adapt to that. The next one we are going to co-create. The next one, which is going to be all around people, it's going to be all around skills. It's going to be all around, the skills that we don't know. Rashmi talked about what are those skills that we will need? What are the skills that these 25% people would need? What are the skills my colleague talked about that, professionals in the specialized agencies would need? And I think a time has come for us to say, we will not respond, but we will lead this next level of change. We have in a way talked about this. The expectations of the workforce are changing. I have a friend here, Sanjay, who is talking about Noble House, wherein they're creating this whole pool of professionals in the gig economy. People who like to do a project. They may not like a whole career. They may not like a job. They will like to do that along with something else. And I think increasingly we see a focus moving towards the gig economy. People working and having commitment to the work, to the project, to the initiative, to the team, rather than to an organization and to a career. And this move from careers to jobs to experiences is something that we are going to see. And we need to be agile to that. So, gone are the days when HR professionals will be surprised that somebody only wanted to work part-time, or only wanted to work 2 days, or only wanted to work on a project, or only wanted to work from home. Those days are gone. Gone are the days when teams in the organization, there would be a leader and he will have his resources which he will hoard. Today, there are leaders and there are team members. If the team members like you, they will work for you. If the leaders like you, they will take the team members. And I think that flexible, democratic, experience-based, two-way feedback mechanism is what we need to be ready with in the working mechanism of the future. So the top-down structures, the tree structures, I think that is already a thing of the past. And it is time that we moved on to the next way in mobile, flexible, agile way of working in the organizations. I think analytics, everybody who's come here would have talked to you about analytics as to how everything can be established into a causality with everything else. That will continue, but a lot of these research also tells you what you already knew. Is that true? Sometimes I find that the artificial intelligence and my natural stupidity, they sometimes conflict with one another. If the artificial intelligence is not superior to my natural stupidity, it is not going to be useful to me. So the basic human intelligence that I've got has to be still useful even as I begin to deploy the AI and the other applications. These are the functions of the human heart which work for the human resource professionals I talked about earlier. Mentoring, leading, guiding, building careers, helping people, in the organizations. Think about all the people that you might have worked. You will still remember that person who came up to you in your times of need, and that was your human resource manager. And that's the role that the technology will not be able to play. That's the role that a lot of the other systems that we create will not be able to play. I'm going to run through some of this. We talked about the hyper-connected work. We talked about people who don't see physically or face-to-face with one another, but still are contributing to it. This is the mechanism, I think one of the colleagues was asking about how the structures of the future are going to change. So we want to move from a traditional to a more agile, flexible working structures, where it's more like tribes working together. It's like, gangs of people contributing, coming together to contribute with commitment to the project deliverables. Dave Ulrich wrote this book 1995, and he talked about the 4 roles of HR. I think it's passé. None of that holds today. None of that actually even held for the last many years. So today we are talking about a new role that's emerging for HR. And that new role is what is going to define this function as we move ahead. So I've got some examples and caselets and stories of use cases of what people have done. Many of you might already know it. So I'm going to quickly flip through what a particular telecom company might be doing, what an Indian conglomerate might be doing in terms of creating a platform. We might also have examples. This is the tribe culture that I was talking about. So we move away from the functional to even the SBU and talk about a structure wherein people come in together to do a project and they disband. And their performance management system is based on the number of snapshots they have during the year. You worked on 12 projects. I have 12 snapshots. This is what will define my performance management, evaluation for the year. No longer the bell curve, no longer the structured system of 3-step PMS process, so on and so forth. Similarly, there are companies which are working on agile organizations. I think this is now a buzzword, agile organization. But I think what this means is that you take it back to the natural way people work. Whatever we've created in terms of organizational structures and system and processes is more artificial. We are removing that artificiality and going back to the natural collective intelligence of the organization. That's what the agile organization is. And this is my last slide, so I'm going to spend a few moments here, and some of those questions that we asked earlier, Rashmi and others, I think we will try and look at that. So the 4 quadrants are what we had talked about earlier. The line managers taking on a large part of the HR role. And I think, quite frankly, this is not something that we need to be worried about or defensive about. We want to facilitate that. We want to delegate those functions that we do in the human resource function to the line managers. Only then we will be able to focus on something which is of higher relevance and higher order. Those functions need to be delegated. We need to be making sure that so in a very light mode, I had once written an article which is called HR Managers, Fire Yourselves. The intent was not to get out of the job, but to make sure that a lot of the things that we do in the HR functions are as well done or even better done by the line managers. Can we prepare those line managers? Can we enable them? Can we delegate? Can we mentor them so that they are able to do those jobs? So that's the first part, the line managers. Second is the self-service or the automation-enabled HR function. Third was the specialized outsourcing, and fourth was the facilitation role, which is the critical one, which is the one where we can talk about some of those skills that will be required. And on the right, you see so I'll talk about the survey that was done, a very popular survey, gets referred a lot. People were asked, when did you hate your HR function the most? And on the second page, they were asked, when did you love your HR function the most? On the left are answers to one part of that question. On the right are answers to the other parts of the question. Let's quickly go through it. So I hate my HR the most when they do their own thing irrespective of the organization goals. They put out the initiatives, these policies, these practices which nobody relates to, nobody understands, nobody benefits from, and they go to the stage and say, we have done this and we've got these 3 awards and we've been rated the best HR and best so on and so forth. People hate you the most when you do that. Ignore people and focus on awards, that's I think related. Serving only the powerful. When you serve only the managing directors and the CEOs, we need to stop. We will stop in 30 seconds. People hate you for that. When you begin to serve only the powerful and ignore the rest or at the cost of the rest, you are hated. Self-serving, rent-seeking, running the politics function, a function that runs the politics, a function that seeks the rent. Because you are in that position of power and information, you seek a rent for that benefit for yourself. A list of promotees come out, a larger number is from the HR function. Self-seeking function, hated. Licensing function, licensing as a role, and showing employee the rules. Every time I come up to you and you show me the rules, I don't like you. But when do I like you? I like you when you help me careers, when I come to you and you tell me this is good for you and help me, actually enable me to do that. You mentor me. When you simplify things for me, I love you for that. One is the rule, second is the simplification. Third is when you are compassionate in my times of need, personal emergencies, then you come up and help me. When you become a facilitator for my learning, and finally, when you trust me and you empower me, when you trust me that I can do this, that is when I love. So I think, Rashmi, possibly some of those are skills that emerge from this, what people love from us in the human resources function. That can give you some hints in terms of the skills that we need to build. That also tells you some skills that we will have to make sure that people who come into this function going forward undertake. I'm going to stop here, but not before making you stand up once again, and this time giving a big round of applause for all those people, the students. We have many students in this audience hall and many who are not here. All those people who have taken up, knowing all that, having experienced all this, have taken a conscious decision to be in this wonderful function of keeping the business humane. Please get up and give them a big round of applause for all the newcomers to the HR function. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. and a delight for me from Deloitte to be a part of this discussion. Have a great day ahead, and best of luck for the rest of the SHRM conference.